These are the 10 habits that I implement every single day to stay lean, maintain or retain muscle, and even build muscle, but more importantly, stay healthy, energized, and on top form in terms of my performance and mental clarity. So I want to get straight into the nutrition piece first, right? So number one is very simple. I talk about this a lot. It's hydration and sodium. Now, electrolytes mainly being sodium and potassium, and also magnesium. What sodium and potassium in particular do is they help you get water and hydration into the cells and into the tissues. It's not effective drinking enough water if it's not going to where it should go. So first thing in the morning, I have a liter of water, literally within the first, say, half hour of waking. And I use these electrolytes that I use, but you can even just keep it cheaper and use lemon and salt, which I've started using sometimes because it's cheaper than electrolytes. And ultimately, that's all you need to do in the morning for you to really set the stage for the rest of the day. Now, most people, where they go wrong is they drink caffeine straight away. They don't hydrate before having the caffeine. And when you wake up, your adrenal system is in overdrive. Cortisol levels are really, really high, the stress hormone. And to balance that out, you definitely want to be hydrating because you lose around about 750 ml to a liter of water in your sleep. So hydrate first, add sodium, and add some lemon, right? Salt and lemon, literally quarter of a teaspoon of salt and lemon does the trick. Half a lemon to a lemon squeezed. Done. Half a lemon's enough. Great. Drink it. If you don't like it, electrolytes, they taste a bit better, right? So that's the first thing I do every single morning. And what that does is not only does it energize me, I have my creatine in there as well, although I've tapered that down a little bit, creatine, but that's another conversation lately. And that 1 liter of water, then I'll generally go straight for a coffee straight away after that, and then go and train. That's my current routine. But the days I don't train, like this morning, I delayed that caffeine for like 90 minutes because I went up, hydrated, had my 1 liter with electrolytes, went to the beach, went for a swim, and then came back, started work at around about 9 a.m., and then had the caffeine, the double espresso, which I love. If you can see on YouTube, just bought these lovely little glass espresso cups. Epic. Tastes so much better in glass, I've just realized, by the way. Anyway, so that's number one, right? It's hydration. And also in terms of hydration, what I do is I tend to drink a lot of water. So I probably drink around about 6 to 7 liters a day. Now, that's probably more than the average person, but for whatever reason, I'm a big guy, I work out a lot, don't really sweat that much. That seems to be the sweet spot for me. And what I also do in terms of hydration is I cut my fluid off at least 1 hour before bedtime because it can impact sleep. And ideally, they say 2 hours before bedtime, cut off fluid and water. So, yeah, and then I tend to drink, in terms of hydration as well, I try not to drink at least 15 minutes before and after a meal. Because what that does is it kind of interferes with your body's natural digestive process and it can cause gut issues. So I'd recommend that as well. But the number one thing is in terms of staying hydrated, rather than me throwing out calculations and stuff, 2.5 liters minimum. Like me, I have 6 to 7 liters. I think it's very simple. Are you thirsty? Sometimes you want to get ahead of the thirst. If you're feeling thirsty all the time, that generally means you're not having optimal hydration, right? If you just forget to drink water, like some of my clients did, and before they started, they just forget. People just literally, the day gets away from you. Stay hydrated. Drink, sometimes you're going to be thirsty, drink, but you want to try and get ahead of that and keep a bottle with you at all times. What I did with a client before is she had a big, massive, she got a stainless steel 1 liter bottle, but it was all colorful. It was like rainbow stripes all over it. So it's literally there all the time on her desk. So she couldn't forget about it. So that's your best bet. And try and avoid plastics. I've got a big 1.5 liter, people laugh at me because it's so big, steel bottle, which basically goes everywhere with me. So you want to get a stainless steel big bottle, and it's easy to track that way as well. If you got a 1 liter bottle, right, I'm going to have at least 2 or 3 of these a day. And if it's with you all the time, it's much easier to do. But have that 500 ml minimum to a liter upon waking with salt or electrolytes. So number 2 is protein and complete protein sources. I wanted to tie in with this. Monitoring fats. In terms of staying lean for me now, I still think about being lean, don't get me wrong, all the time. I'm not going to lie, but it's more about health for me now. And staying lean all year round is the byproduct now of my habits that I'm going to touch on, and years of lifting weights, which is speeding my metabolism up, movement, all those kind of things. But when it comes to nutrition, I monitor the fats. So let's tie these in together. So I eat enough protein, which is number one, right? Having adequate protein is obviously the most important thing when it comes to you being able to stay in shape. And there's a few reasons for that. Having complete protein sources and nourishment is obviously key, especially when you look at grass-fed beef, for example. It's got the perfect balance of amino acids, right? Even eggs is high up there as well. And the biological value of eggs as well in terms of your body's ability to absorb them is extremely high. In fact, eggs, milk, and whey protein, which is derived from milk anyway, right? Whey protein powder are actually right at the top when it comes to biological value, your body's ability to absorb them, and they've got good quality complete sources. But beef is number one, I believe, with the balance of amino acids. So I eat primarily beef as a protein source because I kill two birds with one stone. I get most of the essential nutrients I need with that as well. But as importantly, I would say, is the adherence, right? I always enjoy eating beef mince. I always enjoy eating steak. So I have enough protein. I get that in. My next point is fasting, which I'll touch on. But I get enough protein in to stay lean, muscular, and to stop me making poor decisions with food, right? Because that's what having optimal protein will do. It'll help you make better decisions because it blunts your appetite. So I get that into 2 meals. So I have lunch and dinner, and I get most of it. I get about 75% of my daily protein, or even 80%, into my first meal, which I break the fast at lunchtime. And I tend to have, give or take, around about 800 grams of meat, 700 to 800 grams of beef generally, give or take. And most days I'll have, probably about 4 eggs as well and some avocado. But that takes me on to the next point. Now that's key. I'll tie this into one point, right? Monitoring my fats. So what keeps me lean is monitoring fats. I don't track right now, but I'm fully aware, because you can easily eat loads of like normal beef mince, for example, and normal, say, rump steaks, the fattier cuts of beef. And yeah, you could argue that you're going to get a great balance of fats and essential fats for energy and hormone health, all those kind of things, which is great. But if you're doing that all the time, and on top of that, you add in fats that I just mentioned, like avocado, olive oil, right? Because people don't understand, like an 80-calorie a tablespoon of olive oil is about 80 calories to 100 calories. Avocado, these are good foods, right? These are, especially avocado, right? It's a superfood, I would say. It's very calorie dense. So if I have half an avocado, I'm aware of what the energy is there, right? It's like, 150 calories. So a lot of people, and they add butter, especially people in the carnivore space, keto space, add loads of butter, add loads of those fats, tallows, and they just don't account for how many calories they're actually having. And then they get to a point where they wonder why they either A, can't stay lean, or B, end up plateauing with their fat loss, because they're simply eating too much. And as you lose, this happens a lot, right? With diets, people follow a diet, carnivore, for example, lose a bunch of weight and then plateau. It happens time and time again because the metabolism adapts and your calories, your maintenance calories drop as you lose mass, right? Body mass, weight. So you can get away with less calories. And then if you're just eating the same and you're still adding those fats, then ultimately you're going to stay the same. You're not going to progress. So simply like taking some of those fats out, for example, the added fats, right? Just to give you an example, someone who eats carnivore, they keep in the beef mince, the eggs, but they take down some of the added fats like the butter and the beef tallow that they add in, or the creamer that they add to their coffee. All those kind of things add up. So I'm really aware of those added fats that I have. And I do have a lot of fat, to be honest, in my diet. I have Greek yogurt, normal, full fat. I don't have low fat. I'm aware that's like 90 calories per 100 grams, and I tend to have normally 500 grams each time, right? So that's just give or take 500 calories. So being aware of these things keeps me on track. And if it's someone, I can get away with so many calories as well because I'm a big guy. I built a lot of muscle, which burns a lot of calories, and I move a lot, like I said, very active. But most people can't get away with that amount. So, I would then say to have low-fat yogurt, as long as it's a good quality one, instead of full fat, for example, right? Having protein and complete protein sources, which I also get from eggs as well. Obviously, I'm having leucine, but I look at eggs less for protein. I easily get enough protein from meat anyway. I look at eggs for nourishment, and egg yolk's the perfect multivitamin. Choline, and that's why I have beef liver as well, because choline is such an important essential nutrient for brain function, which is why, good doctors are really recommending pregnant women, for example, to eat more eggs because of the choline for brain function. But there's loads of other vitamins in there as well. There's zinc, there's omega-3s even. So I look at an egg yolk as like my multivitamin, essentially. So yeah, but complete protein sources, but more importantly than having complete protein sources. And like I said, milk, dairy, those things come into that as well. having enough protein. I have the top end. I probably average around about, let's just say average 275 grams of protein a day. And I weigh around about 200, and I think I weigh about 208 pounds or something. So I'm having, 1.5 grams. Let's just round it off that. 1.5 grams per pound of my body weight. That's the very top end. And it's kind of hard to go wrong when you're having that much protein through real food as well, through meat, eggs. I have Greek yogurt as well. And that's how I get my protein in mainly. So the next one is what I've just touched on, is fasting. Before I get to that as well, right? Grab my updated shred blueprint. What I've done is I put in there my reverse dieting guide and the challenge, right? So when I do a challenge, I put together this basically amazing game plan for people to shred 5 pounds of fat in 3 weeks. And it shows you how to keep it off. And you'll do it in a way where it's smart. And it's literally a roadmap for you on how to do that with calories, how many calories to eat, what foods to eat. It's mapped out in there. So you lose the fat first, then you follow my reverse dieting guide to keep it off. Grab that updated shred blueprint, which is in the show notes for free. Just click the link in the show notes. Look, if you want to lose fat and you want to be able to keep it off, and if you want to build muscle as well, the reverse dieting guide will help with that. It's all mapped out in there. Put a lot of time and effort into those things. So it's free. Grab it, right? Click the link beneath in the show notes. So fasting. Now, this is kind of like, I did a whole podcast on this, why I don't recommend fasting for fat loss and staying lean. Now, I always like to bring it back to health though, right? The reason why I do all of these habits is the body looking good is still very important to me. I'm not going to lie. I'll always have that bodybuilder in me, right? And regardless of that, most people want to look good, right? Let's just say it how it is. But the main goal for me with fasting is because it fits into my busy day and I'm more productive when I don't think about food in the mornings. Now, I'll sometimes have some dark chocolate and break the fast with that. To be honest, I've been doing that most days lately, 90% dark chocolate normally. And I have like 2 double espressos on average in the morning as well. I just crack on, I get my work done. That's when I do my best work essentially. And then I'll break my fast midday. Now, what that does, having like 2 meals, or if you want to, you can't class the dark chocolate as a meal. It's not a complete meal. I'm fully aware of that, right? Like I said before, there's incomplete meals and there's complete meals, right? That's the way you got to look at your food when you're snacking. It's not a complete meal. Just look at it that way, right? You want maximum complete meals. Anyway, so when I break the fast, for me, if I have 3 meals, let's say I was to have a third meal in the morning. Number one, I can't get as much work done because it's a bit of a distraction. Number two, I just eat more calories when I do that personally, because I just got a bigger window to eat the food. And that's what happens with a lot of people. It's not that miraculous from what I've seen so far in the research with fasting and time-restricted eating when it comes to fat loss. It's just the fact mainly, there's probably a little bit more to it, but it's mainly because people just eat less food because they're eating in a smaller window. That's the reason why they tend to lose fat. They're in a calorie deficit. It's not rocket science, right? So yeah, that's another reason why fasting works for me, because I eat less when I do that. But the main reason why, like I say, is I feel better, sharper in a fasted state in the morning, and I get more work done. It fits into my lifestyle. I don't even look at it as fasting. I just look at it as just don't eat breakfast, right? Just get work done in the morning, and then I just have a meal when I'm hungry, basically. It's not like rocket science, and that's why I don't recommend it to most people, because they're looking at restriction again. Most people, they struggle to stay lean. They struggle to get lean even, and then they want to fast. Right? And what they've struggled with in the past is restricting food. When you're fasting, you're just restricting food, right? That's all you're doing. Okay, I'm going to stop eating at this time in the morning. I'm going to just try and hang in there until I'm watching food porn on my laptop or phone and essentially having 15 coffees to get me through the fast. Those people shouldn't be fasting, right? So that's a big part of my life. And I use this as well when, it's just a good tool for me. It just made me realize when I started fasting that, number one, muscle's not going to fall off my body. I don't have to eat frequently to keep the muscle on my body. Number two, it teaches you what true hunger is. I now realize I can go without food and I'm fine, right? But it doesn't work for everyone. Number four is eating out rarely. We rarely eat out. We eat out at one place. For example, we just went away on a trip. It was my birthday, and we went away to an amazing place in New Zealand, by the way, Queenstown. If you ever get a chance to go there, one of my favorite places on earth. Beautiful place. We went skiing, all this kind of stuff. Very active, loads of nature, very active trip. And I think we ate out, 3 times. But that's a trip on holiday, right? Number one was for my birthday. The second time, I can't remember where we ate. The third day, the last day, we had a burger, right? Lovely burger as well, by the way. And, I don't have burgers regular, just for the record, right? I'll have a burger with bread probably, once every 3 months on average. So we eat out rarely. Now, eating out, obviously look at health. You don't know what's in it. You don't know preservatives are in the food, the added oils, even when you try and make good choices. Vegetable oils as well, that's a nightmare when you eat out, even if you try your best not to. Most places, they're going to use the dreaded canola oils and the pro-inflammatory vegetable oils. But eating out really keeps me in shape as a byproduct. But I like to know, again, it all goes back to health. I like to know what's going into my body. I've got my water filter. I avoid microplastics as much as possible, heavy metals. I'm on the ball with all that stuff, the environmental toxins, right? Because I don't want to die young, basically, right? So, but yeah, eating out like adds to that. Don't know what's going in it. But when it comes to fat loss and staying lean and getting lean, if you're eating out regular, you're going to be eating more. The end, right? And you don't even know it. You're just eating more food, because they add stuff in there that you can't see. And what you can't see, you can't measure. And then what you'll notice is you'll probably get a bit more information and stuff like that as well if you're eating out too often, because God knows what you're eating, even when you make good choices, right? Now, you can still eat out and make good choices. Don't get me wrong. I have clients who eat out loads each month because they travel a lot with work, they have client meetings, and they haven't got a choice sometimes, right? But as long as you're making better decisions when you're eating out, that's going to be good. That's going to still make progress in comparison to your old self. But when it comes to that next level progress, the less you can eat out, the regular. For example, if we talk about next level, whenever I was doing bodybuilding comps, I would eat out here and there, but at least a month before, I stop eating out altogether. So I know exactly what I'm doing to make sure I'm chipping away at that last bit of body fat, so I can monitor what I'm doing, right? So I really eat out. The fifth one is I have no desire for UPF. In other words, ultra processed foods. I don't have the desire there anymore. Now, I'm going to give you an example on this trip. I actually ate more ultra processed foods. We stayed in this amazing place, right, in the middle of nature, and the lovely woman there, shout out to Daniela, legend. And if you ever go to Queenstown, I'm going to shout her out now. Her place is called 330, amazing bed and breakfast in the middle of nature, and her husband, Andre. They were lovely people, right, really good hosts. Anyway, she used to make, all the stuff she does is like homemade, and she's really in tune with her health as well, which I found awesome, right? She was making like these cereals. Some of them she bought in, right, but they would still be better quality ones, and she would grow a lot of her own stuff. So I was eating some of that, and it was better than what you would normally get, right? But I'm still aware it's classed as UPF, especially the ones she would buy in. She's not going to be spending loads of money on those things. And I was having some of that, like in the evening with my yogurt. Normally I have my yogurt and fruit. I was adding some of these like bran flake kind of cereals, which I never eat cereal. Just want to be clear here. When I was away as a byproduct, I got leaner. But why is that? That's going back to what I said before. I was having like one meal a day sometimes. And just having one big meal in the evenings. And the main reason why I got leaner is because I was just moving more. We were doing loads of active stuff. That's the main reason why. But some days I wouldn't eat much in the daytime, as much as usual, and then I would just have a big meal in the evening. So going back to that, I was eating those foods because they were in front of me. But I don't have the desire generally to eat UPF, to be honest, ultra processed foods. So when you break that desire, that's when you're really onto something, because until you break that desire, you're always going to be at the mercy of those foods, because they are engineered to make us eat the hell out of them, right? And even on that trip, I noticed, like, for example, she baked some cookies, right? Now, they're not technically healthy, but she is it's nothing like, there's no chemicals in there or nothing like that. It would just be sugar and stuff, right? Which she would add herself. So not ideal. But normally if I see cookies in front of me, for example, now, it's just not even like real food to me. I have no desire, no signal to eat them. But because they were in front of me on that trip when I was away, and because she made them as well, right? So it's just something about when someone makes something with love, right? Homemade. I ate them, right? I had them because they were in front of me. But normally I wouldn't get that signal to eat them, right? So, and the only way you break that desire is by eating more and more whole foods over time, and consistently hitting enough protein, and just basically making sure no more than 10% of your diet is ultra processed foods, right? That's the only way you can really break it. But you always want to be aiming for, like with my clients, like I say, I have the empowered eating approach, which I take with clients, and they feel empowered when they're hitting targets, like protein targets, including certain foods into their diet. It could even be, for example, a cup of berries a day. They're hitting targets with their calories and protein, and that what happens then is naturally they stop eating as much UPF. It's a natural process. That's the best way for you to break free of those foods, when it's a strategic, natural process where you're eating more whole foods, eating more protein, hitting targets with certain foods to eat instead of taking away. But naturally, you take away those foods over time because you don't have the desire, because you're eating more protein, and also because you then have more desire to eat real food, right? The next one, we're still on nutrition here, right? This is all nutrition. I'm going to get to some other stuff towards the end. The sixth one is just basically, I barely drink any alcohol nowadays. I'm drinking less and less with my old age of 38, just turned 38. And I don't look at alcohol when I do have a few drinks here and there. I don't look at that as, oh, I'm going to gain fat. But what I did notice the other day is I was looking back at some old photos and I was fatter, essentially, right? I wasn't fat, but I was fatter for sure. And that was because I was eating more UPF, going back to my previous point. But I also looked back and I was drinking alcohol more regular. Now, it's not, now there is a lot of science to when you drink alcohol, the body has to metabolize acetaldehyde. I can never pronounce the main chemical that you get in alcohol. And what was it called? The ethanol as well. It has to break down those toxins first and metabolize those before it can actually metabolize and burn, so to speak, the food that you eat. So there's some science to that. But for me and for a lot of people, I find the main thing is, now, if you're excessively drinking, that's a lot of extra calories. It's going to keep you stuck. You're not going to lose fat, right? If you're binge drinking and overdoing it. But a few drinks here and there, it's less about the calories, especially if it's using low-calorie drinks. Like that is a big one. If you're drinking beer, wine, the heavy-calorie drinks, it's just going to hold you back a bit because of the calories. But you want to go for the lower-calorie drinks like the vodka and soda waters, or even the gin and soda waters, for example, is lower than those ones. But it's the inhibitions, it's the knock-on effect. Back then, I was just eating more because I was drinking and I didn't care as much. I lost my inhibitions, just eating more food because it's like fake hunger, right? When you're drinking alcohol. So that's a big one for me. Staying lean, staying healthier. Like, again, I want to bring it back to health. The reason I don't drink is because I don't want to shrink my brain and I don't want to punish and destroy my body, because it literally is one of the worst things you can do to your body next to smoking, basically. Right? There's no way we can deny that. There's never, essentially, every time we drink, we are, taking time off our life, essentially. Like, that's how bad it is for us. So look at it that way. It doesn't mean you can necessarily be perfect, but the less you can drink, the better. But give you an example, I had 2 drinks on my birthday, 2 pale ale beers for my birthday, just because, for the sake of it, though. My girlfriend doesn't drink, so I did it just for the sake of it. And it was okay, I guess, but I just did it for the sake of it. And afterwards, I was like, I didn't really need that, right? So yeah, anyway, so I'm drinking less and less, and that as a side effect keeps me leaner and leaner, right? And healthier. And obviously when it comes to muscle gain, forget about it if you're drinking lots of alcohol, right? All right, so where are we at now? We're on number 8. So strength training is everything, right? When it comes to me staying in amazing shape all year round, having a lot of muscle mass, staying lean. And it's not just actually doing it consistently, which is obviously the most important thing. It's doing it the smart way. So, you got to look at inflammation, right? When you go to the gym, if you were to do a scan on your body, essentially, it would look terrible, right? Your body would look unhealthy and inflamed, right? Simple as that. So a lot of people get stuck in the recovery trap. When they're training, they haven't hit that sweet spot with the amount of volume they're doing per session, which kind of ties into the intensity of the workout as well. And then what they do is their body's just constantly trying to recover. So they don't adapt and build muscle. And what it then does is it slows down fat loss, because if you're overdoing it, there's only so much you have the stress bucket, which will overflow if there's too much water coming into that bucket. And training is an added stress. In other words, the tap's going to turn on, basically, and that bucket's going to fill up as you train because it's an added stress, like I just said. So you need to hit that sweet spot. So for me, I lift smart nowadays, right? I still like to lift hard at times, and obviously you got to push yourself and overload your body, but I actually do way less than I ever have. And actually I look better or just as good as I ever have, even in my 20s, right? So I throw in deload weeks as well. Now, I really struggle with this. I should do it more often. I would argue, to be honest, most people, and I get this, my clients to do this, every 8 weeks, 4 to 8 weeks, will throw in a deload week where they just do, like bands, for example. They use rubber bands, body weight, and do some mobility for like literally 15 to 20 minutes a day and just stay active, like keep walking and stuff. So yeah, that's basically what I do. I lift smart. I do the full body most of the time, although I'm doing upper lower now. Full body is better for most when you do, say, 3 full bodies in a week, because you're hitting the body parts frequently enough to build muscle, but you're not going to it's hard to overdo it when you're doing full body. If you're just doing like 1 or 2 exercises per body part versus, 4 or 5, it's easier to stay in the right zone when it comes to the volume and the recovery process. Remember, your body's either recovering or adapting. If it's recovering, you're not growing, it's recovering. When you adapt in, after you want to make that recovery process as quick as possible, so then your body adapts and builds muscle and gets stronger, and your metabolism speeds up and all that kind of stuff. So I lift smart and I throw in deload weeks, probably on average every 8 weeks, but I probably should do every 4 weeks, to be honest, but I just love lifting too much. Actually, what were we on that? No, we're on number 8 now. That was number 7. So number 8 now is obviously steps. Very simple. This is something that people overlook. I track my steps and I move, and I do at least 10K steps every single day. I move regular. I have a stand-up desk. I'm stood up now. You know, people don't realize that actually like the biggest opportunity to actually burn calories is daily movement. That's your biggest opportunity to burn calories. So if you move as much as you can throughout the daytime and do as many steps as you can, like it's a game changer, right? I would be way fatter, for example, if I was eating what I'm eating now and I was doing less steps. Let's say I probably average around about 11 or 12,000 steps, give or take, a day. Let's say I was doing even 7 or 8,000 and eating what I'm eating now, I would be a hell of a lot fatter, right? Wouldn't be, I would just be softer, so to speak. It's as simple as that, really, right? So focus on steps over cardio, just low intensity. It's not even cardio, right? It's easy on the body. Movement is medicine for the brain as well, and regular movement in particular. So steps is just number one, I would say, really, for calorie output. Next to weights and steps, because the impact on metabolism with lifting weights and just build a muscle. You look better anyway. Obviously, you have to build muscle to build a good-looking physique, period. For a long period of time as well, you have to focus on strength training, lifting weights. But steps is key. People overlook that one. So even if you can add like an extra 15 to 30 minute walk onto your day or an extra 2,000 steps if you're tracking, that's a win. Last but not, well, actually, there's two more. This is the most important one, to be honest, when it comes to health, muscle gain, fat loss, sleep, right? I talked about this before. It's the sleep duration is very important. I always aim to get at least 7 hours on average a night actually sleeping, not in bed. I'm in bed for like 8.5 hours, but I read my book and then you're awake for like an hour without realizing it because I track it. So I sleep for like, let's say 7 hours on average. I try to get a bit more than that. I think 7.5 or 8 hours is the sweet spot, which is key. But equally as important, if not more important, is actually the practices and which are gonna impact the quality of your sleep. So I avoid blue light from my phone and laptop. Sometimes I watch TV, but even that's blue light. It's not as negative, the impact, but it's still not ideal. So I avoid all blue light, really, TV, laptop, phone for the most part, for at least 75 minutes before bedtime. Ideally, I try to do 90 minutes, but it's a minimum of 75 minutes. On a bad day, it'll be an hour before bed, right? And then I'll just get my stuff ready, my gym kit ready, shower, read my book, stuff that doesn't involve looking at a screen, essentially. And that's a game changer, right? There's no way around that one. Put the phone away, even if you can start with 30 minutes before bedtime, but ideally you want at least an hour. And then the regularity of my sleep as well, right? So going to bed at roughly the same time is the most important thing for your circadian rhythm, immune system, health. It's literally everything. So people have all these sporadic times they go to bed, and also there's a thing called social jet lag, which is real. People wonder why they start their week knackered. It's because they stayed up a couple of hours later on the weekend. Now, you're not going to be perfect with this, but if you stay up like, one night or even 2 nights longer on the weekend, say like even 2 hours, later than your bedtime, you start your week with like social jet lag, even an hour, right? You could start your week with social jet lag. So ideally, you don't want to give it 15 minutes difference between the time you go to bed. So lights out for me is normally by 10 p.m. basically, the same every night. And then naturally tend to wake up at the same time. Then it takes care of that part. And I track my sleep as well. I have Aura, I have 8 Sleep. I'm super meticulous. This is the best investment I've made, being aware of my sleep and my HRV, my heart rate variability for recovery. And it's just helped me level up my sleep and be more aware. But they're the main things: blue light, regularity, and then also a big one is cutting food off. I cut food off at least 3 hours before I go to sleep. I aim to cut food off before it gets dark. Now it's like 5:30 is the latest I eat. I finish eating by 5:30 p.m. and that gives me at least gives me 4.5 hours then before sleep. But you want to give it a bare minimum of 3 hours. And you can forget about your decision making with food and building muscle and looking good if you're not prioritizing sleep, right? It's out the window. Forget about it. The last one is cold shower and cold therapy, right? Now, this one is like, okay, yeah, you're really going to stay lean and everything from doing cold showers. But I was just thinking about this. There is some research now to show as well, right, that cold therapy helps your body burn more calories. It does, right, because your body has to warm itself up afterwards, right? Now, I don't recommend this to most people, cold showers and cold therapy. I just think it's not important for most people. But for me, it's really helped me doing this over the last kind of 8 years because it's discipline. So I think there's been a knock-on effect just from building that muscle in your brain, the discipline muscle, whatever that's called. Andrew Huberman talked about it. Because I never want to have a cold shower. When I was in New Zealand, I was jumping into the cold lakes, right, in the winter in New Zealand. Brutally cold. I did 2 of them, right? The second one, I pushed it too far, stayed in there too long. Took me an hour to warm up. Done. But I pushed myself to do it. Even just going for a swim here in Bondi in the winter in the morning, like this morning it was cold, and cold shower every single morning. I never want to do it, and I've adapted to it now. So it's a lot easier. and it just builds discipline. But there is a lot of, naturally probably my body burns a bit more calories. I think it doesn't make a massive difference though. I don't think that's something people should focus on. Without controlling your food and calories, forget about it. But yeah, I think as a byproduct, it's helped me be more disciplined in other areas, to be honest, doing the cold therapy, cold showers. I was doing ice baths for a while, but it was messing up my sleep and my recovery, so I stopped doing it. I think for most people, ice baths are too much. I think it's overflow in the stress bucket, to be honest. So yeah, that's the 10th habit. So just to wrap this up, right, we have created a private group, and I'm going to give the first 20 people free access as a WhatsApp group, and you're going to get a ton of value. I'm basically going to give you valuable tools, valuable coaching methods, and if you're stuck and you want to get in shape, this group's going to be a game changer for you, 100%, and it's free. It's a community, right? So if you want to join that, I've left a link in the show notes with the Shred Blueprint. Get that Shred Blueprint, right? Trust me, it's awesome. And get click the link to enter. The first 20 people are going to get exclusive free access to this WhatsApp group. That's just beneath in the show notes. And then finally, check out this next video, which is the 5 foods that got me shredded, more shredded than I've ever been, to be honest. And I break them down, very simple, very effective. So check out this next video, and we will speak very soon.